Hey all, this is Val here with another Epic 7 video. In today's video, this is where we start talking about the nitty-gritty. We get right into it with team composition. So since we're talking about teams, we're going to start off at the team menu, which you get to by clicking Hero at the lobby and then Teams. You can see I have 3 teams. Default, you do start off with 2. You can click the Add Team button here, and then for a gold cost, you can actually add an additional team slot. Right now, I don't know what the cap is since I just only barely added the 4th. But when your team's created, you're going to notice a few things. You see this leader spot here? Take note of the message. Team leader will receive damage more frequently. And that is it. That's all the team leader spot means. Whoever you stick in that slot is the one most likely to get hit. It doesn't mean they will, but they are the most likely one. Now, everyone has abilities. Every single one has a leader type skill. In DHC, it was called synergy trait. In SW, it was leader skill. In this game, they call it a memory imprint. But how it works here is every memory imprint is activated when you add a unit that has a memory imprint in it. A perfect example of that is my Destina, a healer here. If you take a look in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see her memory implant is B, health plus 4.3% to everyone in the party, not just herself, regardless if she's leader slot or not. So that is really good. It gives you incentive to want dupes, especially if they have a really good memory imprint that they can share with the entire team. Going back to our team menu, you can see I'm running a healer. That's going to be Destina. I'm running Ravi, which is a DPS / tank. Depending on how you build her, most people prefer to do her as a tank because she actually will farm for you like nobody's business because she heals on skill 1. You actually turn off her ability to use skills when farming with her because they just slow her down and they reduce damage. The more time she's hit, the more damage she does, the stronger her attacks get. When you use a special ability, it actually drains that ability. It drains her fighting spirit, which is what it's called, so she does more damage. That's why you'll see in a lot of my videos, I have skills off for her because I always want her to be doing top damage, so her S1 does as much damage as possible and heals her. Here you'll see in my back slot, I'm using Larina. She is pure DPS. I'm also in the process of finishing up her specialty quest. I only have 2 urgent missions to go. And then lastly, Dayan is a shielding healing type unit. I would run her solo, but her shields, while being excellent and all her buffs being excellent, unfortunately she does not heal unless you have a specific artifact that heals when you use a non-attack ability. Since she quite frequently spams her skill 2 and skill 3, which is a non-attack ability, that means she would be healing constantly. So until I get the artifact for her, I'm running both Destina and her in the same group, depending on the content that I'm dealing with. So since we're talking about group and what's this group's composition, I let you know that Destina is the healer. I have a tank / DPS. I have Larina, which is pure DPS. And then I have a shielder, call her a support unit for now, until I get the artifact that allows her to heal. So we'll take a look at how I have my Destina built. First, let's look at her skills. Skill 1 is Key to an Oath. Attacks with staff and heals the ally with the lowest health. Healing increases proportional to the caster's max health. Now, in this game, they have something called Soul Burn. When you're in a dungeon, as you've seen before, there's a little meter on the bottom that shows you how many souls you've collected. Certain abilities can be Soul Burn that adds an additional effect, or you can summon a Guardian, which does damage and also has its own effects. In Destina's case, when you Soul Burn her skill 1, the attack on the enemy greatly heals all ally, but cannot trigger dual attack. In this game, randomly, the characters have a chance to call another character when they're attacking to assist in damage. What this is letting you know is if you soul burn it, she won't call anyone else to help assist her, but she will heal for a large amount if you soul burn it. This is the skill 1. There is no cooldown on this. This is the one you spam when your cooldowns are down. Her particular one will heal the lowest person, and her healing is based on her max health, which is why pretty much everyone builds Destina on HP. Her skill 2, Regen, blesses an ally, recovering their health and increasing their combat readiness by 30%. Healing increases proportional to the caster's max health. Now, I wanted to talk about this in this video, and right off we start with Destina. You see how it increases combat readiness by 30%? Combat Readiness is your ATB bar or your attack bar. If you think of SW, there is no DHC equivalent because DHC is a real-time game. When you get Combat Readiness, think of it like this. You're being teleported further in the attack order because you are immediately given all that Combat Readiness to say, okay, you're this much further. You're 30% further now. What people have to understand is units like Yuna and units like Silk will not get you turn 1. The reason why is because they buff speed. Speed does not give you Combat Readiness. Think of it like this. Combat Readiness is an immediate teleport to a lower position because you go high and then you go lower when you're about to attack. When you're all the way on the bottom, you're attacked. So your Combat Readiness gets lowered. You get lowered 30% with Combat Readiness. When you buff speed, the unit says, all right, I am faster now. It does not get teleported. But when its turn comes up, it goes a little further than it would have, a little lower, excuse me, in Combat Readiness because it's faster and it's ready to attack quicker. That's why if you're looking to build a turn 1 team, you don't use Yuna, you don't use Silk. What Silk does is Silk debuffs all their teams so it makes them gain Combat Readiness slower. And then she increases your team, which makes you give Combat Readiness faster, which means as turns cycle, you are going to get your turns before they get theirs, but it does not immediately give you turn 1. Tiara, on the other hand, gives Combat Readiness, which is the teleport. So you jump lower in the list, which means you're going to attack faster. I know it's weird saying it because in Summoner's War, you want to gain attack bar. In this game, you want to lose Combat Readiness because you start high, and as your Combat Readiness drops down to 0, then you attack. So that's why it says decreases Combat Readiness, because you want to go lower in the turn. You want to go lower down. But that's the difference, and it's a very important difference to note if you're trying to make a cleave team. So if you see someone running Silk and you have a Tiara, you have nothing to worry about. Silk is just going to make them get a faster Combat Readiness. It doesn't instantly give them Combat Readiness. Hopefully that made sense because it's a very important distinction to make. But keep in mind, it's a teleport versus a boost. Combat Readiness will teleport you, get your turn quicker. Speed will help you, will accelerate the order, but you still have to wait for your turn. It does not teleport you. All right, now let's take a look at her skill 3. Destin's Grace grants all allies the blessing of a spirit. Lord, dispelling all debuffs and recovering health. If ally is debuffed, their combat readiness will also be increased by 15% per each debuff. Each effect can only be applied up to 4 times. Healing increases proportional to the caster's max health. So again, you can see the common theme here is 100%. You need to go health build on her. The combat buff she has is really good because it lets your people go faster in their turns. If they have 4 debuffs, that means you're going to gain 60% combat readiness, which is going to lower you further in the combat list, getting you to your turn quicker. She's a really good unit, and she is the healer that I've gotten. Now, there is another healer that people say is actually better than her. I thought about putting in my group, and that is going to be Helico. And Helico here is really good, but you can see I only have her 4-starred. I don't have her max awakened either. You can tell each awakening by this kind of orangish star with a dark blue center. So she is really good as well. You take a look at her. Her skill 1, Holy Strike, attacks with staff with a 20% chance to stun for 1 turn. First of all, stun is very, very nice. And it seems to happen more than 1 in 5 with her, and that's just on her basic attack, right? Then you take a look at her skill 2, Origin of Life, recovers allies' health with healing power. Amount recovered is proportional to the caster's max health. But look at the cooldown time, 2 turns. 2 turns. If you put a prophetic candle on her, which is an artifact, which gives her a chance to lower her cooldowns by 1 when she's attacked, you can possibly spam this every turn if she is in the leader slot. Like, that is just ridiculous. Like, 2 turn cooldown for that heal. All right. Now take a look at her 3rd. Guide of the Goddess recovers to health of all allies. Well, I thought I said that wrong, but that's what it says. Should say recovers health of all allies and grants a barrier and immunity for 2 turns. Amount recovered and barrier strength is proportional to the caster's max health. Her soul buff effect extends the duration by 2 turns, meaning 4 turn immunity and shield. Holy smokes. And you get a 1-turn cooldown minus on her, which means if you get down to that 3rd skill enhance, you can always have the shield buff up if you so burn it. That is ridiculous. That is so freaking good. You put a prophetic candle on her, oh my gosh. You see why those lower skill turn cooldowns, the barrier and the immunity, are just so good. What she doesn't have, though, is that combat readiness to get you into the turns faster. It's the only thing she doesn't have. People still say, though, she is the preferred healer. As you can see, I've started gearing her up. I'm pretty low on health gear, but I do plan on trying her out, getting her to 6-star, and see if I can use her to replace my Destina, assuming that I can't get the Rod artifact for Dayan, which would make her actually better than both of them. But so I went with her. I went with Destina just because of the combat readiness, and well, I 6-starred her first. She was one of the first units that I summoned. So I got her out of her banner when it was up. I think it took me 20 summons, and then I got her. I was super, super happy. Maybe a little more than 20. I'm not sure. So that's my first slot, right? And let's go down to my second, which is Ravi here. So Ravi is another super, super popular unit. She is the go-to farmer for a lot of people. As you can see here, I use Aburus Axe, Tooth on it, excuse me. What this does is when she crits, there's a 75% chance that she'll do additional damage based off my attack. Even though that's based off my attack, you can see I still went with speed. I might be switching this out to attack. I'm not sure yet. I'm a big fan of speed, mostly because I've seen what it does in YDCB's team. He runs all of his units on speed, but he does match up the appropriate percentile stat for both your necklace and your ring. So I don't know. I mean, I'm really thinking about switching her back to attack because she does hit a lot harder. Let's take a look at her skills. Skill 1, Slaughter. Attacks with double-edged axe and absorbs some of the damage as health. You look at the Sobering effect, greatly increases amount of damage dealt, but does not trigger the dual attack. So you're not going to have the chance she'll call someone over to assist. As you can see, I've gone all the way down to 4. I am going to get that plus 15 damage dealt because she's my farmer. And this is the only skill I actually use on her. Because when I'm adventuring, I turn off the other 2 skills. Because this gives her fighting spirit. You take a look here. See here it says acquires 10 fighting spirit. The more fighting spirit she has, the more damage she does. When she uses her skill 3, it drains all her fighter spirit, which lowers her damage, which means her healing also gets lower, and runs just take a lot longer when farming. So that's why I have her skill off. Now her second is her passive, increases attack proportional to fighting spirit. When attack combat readiness, it increases by 10% and a 5 fighting spirit is gained. So basically, when she gets hit, if she's in a tank spot or no matter where she is, if she gets hit, she gains 10% combat readiness. So that helps her get her turn quicker when you're farming. Hopefully they're all beating on her and they're giving her more combat readiness so she can attack and clear ways faster. Is she the fastest clearer out there? Absolutely not, but she is one of the most stable, very easy to gear, very easy to use. As you can see, I'm only down to the 2nd skill enhance on that. Now her 3rd skill, Devil Drive. Brutally attacks all enemies with a 75% chance to stun for 1 turn and decreases their combat readiness to 0. So basically, they get reset all the way back to the top of the list. They're not going to be able to attack. They got to build up combat readiness all over again. I haven't skill enhanced this because I never want her using this. Even in PvP, I never want her using this. Unless there's just some crazy situation that came up where I really need to stun because maybe I wasn't able to burst down that last unit. Destina is going to heal, and I need her to do the stun so Destina doesn't heal, and I can get that unit killed and move on with my life. And that actually works sometimes because of the speed set. So she's likely going to move before their team when turns come around. So if I wasn't able to wipe the unit I needed, I could potentially stun to have that done. But I mean, very niche use. I probably will likely never skill this, but never say never, right? So that's my unit there. Then let's take a look at Larina. She is all 100% about DPS. As you can see, I've awakened her 5 times, just 1 more to go. I have her on an attack crit set. Let's take a look at her skills. So Sharp Blow knocks the enemy into the air with Spear, increasing caster's combat readiness by 20%. So you can see on skill 1, she gets 20% combat readiness. So she's going to cycle pretty quickly. Skill 2, Spiritual Armament. Increases attack 10% each time the caster attacks an enemy. Effect can only stack up to 5 times, so you can get a 50% attack buff. This is, of course, her passive. I haven't sunk any skill ups into this yet. I am going to definitely skill her up. Then her third skill, Resolve, jumps into the air and strikes down at the enemy, dealing damage proportional to the amount of enemy's lost health. And then if you soul burn it, it grants her an additional turn. Now, she is one of the 2 rare units that you can, when I say rare units, not as in her rarity, but as in the ability to do what I'm about to say, who can change her specialty. So if you take, let's go back here. And then we take a look at, oh, one of my missions completed. Let's send them back out. All right. So if you go back here, you go to Hero, and you go to Specialty Change. Here are the 2 heroes that can currently be specialty changed. As you can see, I'm 50% through. You click on details and it tells you the missions that you have to do to accomplish this. So you have to do 50 urgent missions, give her 6 sharp spearhead catalysts, eliminate 10,000 monsters in adventure, and then once you do these 3, you have to take on the trial. As you see, I'm only 3 away from being able to do the trial. And then you can see what she's going to look like once she skill changes. Check that out, man. She looks freaking awesome. Like, that just looks freaking cool. And you see how it says enhance? This is how it changes the ability. Pierces the enemy with a spear, decreasing combat readiness by 15%. So now she's actually pushing them back further in turns. Damage dealt increases proportional to the amount of the enemy's lost health. And of course, the soul burn effect is still the same, grants an extra turn. She is a very, very, very hard-hitting unit and well worth the investment. All she is about in my team is doing damage. That's all I need her to do. That's all she has to do. And she is very, very good at that job. If you are a free-to-play player, she is someone you definitely should be picking up. And lastly, our pure support unit, which is Dayan. She is currently the limited summon. We don't know if she'll ever come back. That's why I invested in pulling her before she went away. Let's take a look at her skills. First skill, Light of Judgment. Immense array of brilliant light, increasing the caster's combat readiness by 10%. Effects doubles when the caster is buffed. So look at that. So if she's buffed and she casts this, then she gets 20% combat readiness, which she's gonna do. She buffs all the time. All the time. Alright, Blessing of the Goddess for skill 2. With the Blessings of the Goddess, covers all allies with the barrier for 2 turns. Before dispelling 1 debuff, barrier strength increases proportional to the target's max health. So this one's based off your target, not off her. But this barrier ability can be enhanced once awakened, which we haven't talked about. So if you look at Awaken, every unit when you awaken, on their 3rd awaken, gets a bonus to one of their skills. In this case, that skill we just looked at goes from the top to this one. So now a Miracle of the Goddess manifests, increases attack and critical hit resistance of all ally for 3 turns before increasing the caster's combat readiness by 50%. So she gives herself 50% combat readiness when she does that, meaning she's already halfway back to her turn. This unit is so good as far as support units. She's really, really good. Lastly, on her 3rd skill, a Miracle of the Goddess manifests. Oh yeah, sorry. So, as you can see, if you skill burn it, you get 2 turns, right? Check this out, though. It is a 5-turn cooldown, minus 1 turn cooldown when you get skill enhance it, which means she can keep this up pretty much constantly. She can keep this up constantly. Like, this unit is just so good. Her only issue is no heals. That's why she's a pure support unit from me. But there's an artifact you get anytime a unit uses a non-attack skill, you actually heal. So that's why that's the power artifact for this young lady. I don't have it. It's called Rod of something another. You'll hear people say they really want Rod for her. That's what they're talking about. Because it just makes her so dangerous. I have her on speed set because you want her to go first. With that attack buff, you definitely want her to go first. The turn order for her should be, so you have your first unit go, they buff combat readiness, right? And then once your combat readiness is buffed, your next unit should be your armor breaker. Once your armor breaker goes, then your next unit should be your attack buff, and then after your attack buff, then it should be your cleave or your DPS. That's how your turn order should go in PvP. Now, if you don't have that, it's really hard to do. The the important part is the combat readiness. Remember, before we were talking about combat readiness versus speed. Speed does not work. Yuna and Silk do not work for that purpose. Remember, you have to have combat readiness if you want to lock down on turn 1. So a good one, if you do want to use speed, so you can outspeed them on top of it and get turns quicker, you'd want to go first. You'd want to go your combat readiness, always. That ensures your turn 1. That means your Tiara, who might get nerfed and lose that. We don't know next week. We'll see how it all turns out. But like your Tiara, she goes, she gives everyone that. Then you can have your Yuna go and buff your attack. Then you can have, or no, then you have your then you have your attack go. Then you can have your armor breaker go. So now they get the benefit of attack from them. Maybe it helps them, I don't know. But then lastly, you have your DPS go. Like Tenebria is a really good one because Tenebria armor breaks as well. So what you could do is if you have a Tenebria, go combat readiness, then you buff your attack, and then you launch Tenebria, and then since you've got your armor breaker and DPS all in one, you can go with another cleanup unit, like maybe Clarissa. And the reason why I said Clarissa, one, she's only a 4-star, easier to get than Vildred or Sev. So they're going to be so low from Tenebria. You're going to kill with Clarissa, is going to proc her passive, and then she's going to do AoE again. So with Clarissa, you'd want to do your skill 3, which does AoE. It'll kill someone for sure, because Clarissa hits like a truck. Then when she kills someone, she also puts bleeds on, right? She doesn't have to kill anyone for that, but she'll put bleeds on them. And remember, you're only cleaning up. So she does her AoE, she puts bleeds. If anyone happens to live to her first AoE, she's going to kill someone because they're already low, which means she's going to proc her second AoE to come up and finish it up. If anyone happens to be alive, they're going to be so low, as soon as they move, the bleed's going to tick and kill them. And you move on to your next fight. But that's just basically how you're looking at your turn order PvP-wise. Now for this is a PvE team that I use in a few different places. I pretty much use them everywhere. I do have slight variations where I switch out the Dayan slot, but for the most part, that's how it is. But that's how I created this team. That's what I was thinking and how I run them. Like I use this in almost everywhere to be honest with you. But you just got to have that conscience in your mind on what you have. You know, you got to have your cleanser, your DPS, your tank, and your buffer. Like just make sure you're getting everything you need in. In some cases, like in Wyvern, you also need debuffs to make sure that the dragon doesn't double attack you. In this case, I actually use Chloe because Chloe has the magic nail, which actually makes people do even more damage. It's just really, really, really great unit to use for Wyvern, and make sure you get your debuffs on there. And then sometimes I'll swap in Cecilia for Ravi, so that way I have an armor break. Because that's one of the areas I'm extremely lacking in, is reliable armor breakers. Because I haven't built my Tiara yet. I'm glad I haven't. I'm going to wait to see how the debuff or the nerf goes for her next week. If it's not too bad, then I'll still keep her. My guess, and this is nothing I've heard, guys. I have no inside information. I'm just a small YouTuber. But I really think they're going to lower her max possible armor break to 75%. And then I also think that they're going to lower her combat readiness by about 5% that she gives everyone. And I think that's going to be it. I think that's really going to be the only changes. They might play with her HP scaling as well, her HP scaling attack. I'm not 100% positive on that. I don't see that as being too OP. But I really think the combat readiness and 100% armor break are where they're going to focus the nerf for her. All right. That's going to do it for this video. I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully that gave you some insight on team creation, how I create my teams, what I'm looking for, and help you further clarify between speed versus combat readiness buffs, and a lot of other good stuff. I mean, hopefully we learned a little bit more meatier than our last 2 videos. You know, if I did miss something or something you thought I should be included, please drop that in the comments below, because if you know me from DHC, I'm very humble when it comes to taking constructive feedback. I'm trying to use a format that works well for DHC, might not work well here. I'm very interested in hearing what you guys think about it. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you all for watching, and as always, all you dudes and dudettes out there, stay frosty.